Once upon a time, there existed a remarkable kingdom known as Macedon. Tucked away in the northern reaches of the Greek peninsula, its origins traced back to the Mykonoi tribe, who proudly referred to themselves as Hellenes, a term later embraced by all Greeks. The kingdom was founded around the 7th century BCE by a figure named Perdiccas, who was said to be a descendant of the god Macedon, himself a son of mighty Zeus. For centuries, Macedon remained somewhat isolated from the southern Greek states. The Greeks, viewing the Macedonians as barbarians, saw little value in their distant neighbors beyond the resources their land provided. Likewise, the Macedonians held the Greeks in disdain. Even during the Persian invasion of 480 BCE, when Macedonia found itself under Persian rule, the relationship between the north and south remained strained. Despite being compelled to provide troops for the Persian cause, Macedon stayed largely detached from the affairs of southern Greece. Everything changed with the ascension of King Philip II to the Macedonian throne in 359 BCE. Philip, a visionary ruler, set about systematically bringing the southern Greek city-states under his control. His tactics were cunning, and soon, many once independent states found themselves subject to Macedonian authority. However, Philip's reign was cut short by assassination in 336 BCE, leaving his ambitious plans in the hands of his young son, Alexander. Alexander, later known as Alexander the Great, inherited not only his father's throne but also his aspirations. Determined to leave his mark on history, he embarked on a campaign of conquest that would see him spread Greek culture and civilization across the known world. From the sands of Egypt to the heart of Persia, Alexander's armies marched, leaving a trail of Hellenistic influence in their wake. But as Alexander's empire expanded, resentment brewed in the hearts of many Greeks who resented Macedonian rule. Even after Alexander's untimely death in 323 BCE, the animosity toward anything Macedonian persisted. Macedon, once a powerful and influential kingdom, found itself increasingly isolated as southern Greece turned its back on its northern neighbor. Yet, Macedon endured, remaining a force to be reckoned with until its eventual annexation by Rome in the year 146 BCE. And, in the early 7th century BCE, a group of people known as the Macedonians, led by their king Perdiccas, journeyed to the central part of their region and settled there. Over time, they expanded their territory, colonizing both to the north and south, displacing the Thessalians and Illyrians who had previously inhabited those lands. Before the arrival of the Macedonians, the region was known as Emathia, but they claimed it as their own and named it after their patron god, Macedon. The Macedonians traced their lineage back to Macedon, a son of Zeus, who had two sons, Pieros and Amethos, according to ancient legends. These legends provided a religious backdrop to the geographic and ethnic terms already in existence. Their language, known as Macedonic, was somewhat related to other Greek dialects but distinct enough to be nearly incomprehensible to the Greeks of the southern regions. Despite their connections to Greek mythology and their claims of Greek descent, the Macedonians were not fully accepted by the southern Greek city-states. Herodotus, an ancient historian, argued that while the Macedonians worshipped Greek gods and claimed descent from Greek heroes like Heracles, they were still considered outsiders by many Greeks. The Greeks viewed the Macedonians with disdain, seeing them as semi-savages with uncouth habits and inferior political institutions. However, the Macedonians sought recognition and acceptance from the southern Greeks. King Alexander I, the first historical king of Macedon, presented himself with a Greek pedigree, linking himself to the illustrious Argive kings of the past. This claim was enough to gain him acceptance by the Greek authorities, who allowed him to participate in the prestigious Olympics, an honor reserved only for Greeks. Despite their efforts to emulate Greek customs and gain acceptance, the Macedonians remained somewhat isolated from the southern Greek city-states. The Greeks continued to view Macedonia as a barbaric land, notable only for its abundant natural resources. The kingdom was divided between the forested highlands and the fertile lowlands, which produced valuable crops and timber, the chief exports of the region. Under the Macedonian monarchy, which initially ruled from Agai and later from Pella, the kingdom was organized into small independent communities. While the king oversaw the administration of the realm as a whole, individual subordinates managed the details of trade, reflecting a system inherited from the time of separate tribal rule. Unlike their southern neighbors, the Macedonians relied heavily on agriculture and did not employ slaves, a lifestyle that further contributed to the southern Greeks' disdain. And the early kings laid the foundation for what would become a formidable kingdom under the visionary leadership of Philip II. Before Philip's ascent, the Macedonian throne witnessed a series of rulers whose reigns were shrouded in semi-historic obscurity. Amyntas I, the father of Alexander I, was the first Macedonian king known to engage in diplomatic relations with other nations. Under his rule, Macedonia became a vassal state of the mighty Persian Empire. Alexander I followed in his father's footsteps, skillfully navigating alliances and treaties to advance Macedonian interests. Perdiccas II, Alexander's successor, further expanded Macedonian influence, cunningly playing rival Greek city-states against each other to maintain Macedonia's autonomy. Despite these diplomatic triumphs, Macedonia continued to be viewed with disdain by the southern Greeks, particularly the Athenians, who regarded it as a backward and barbaric land. It was Archelaus who transformed Macedonia's fortunes. As Perdiccas' successor, he implemented sweeping reforms that elevated Macedonia to equal status with the southern city-states. Archelaus revitalized the army, centralized power under the throne, and embarked on a cultural program to increase Hellenization, inviting renowned Greek poets and artists to his court. However, Archelaus' reign came to an abrupt end when he was tragically killed during a hunting expedition. His son Orestes briefly succeeded him before being overthrown by Eurypus II. The Macedonian throne became a precarious seat of power, with successive kings ruling for short periods before meeting untimely ends. It was under the reign of Amyntas III that Macedonia found stability and prosperity. Amyntas secured the kingdom's borders, expanded trade with Greek city-states, and continued the work of Hellenization initiated by Archelaus. His alliances with Sparta and Athens further strengthened Macedonia's position in the region. Upon Amyntas III's passing, his son Alexander II assumed the throne but failed to uphold his father's legacy. It was Philip II, Alexander II's youngest son, who would fulfill the vision of his forebears. Philip, who ascended to power in 359 BCE, embarked on a transformative journey to unify Greece under Macedonian rule. Philip's upbringing in Thebes, where he received a formal education in military and diplomatic affairs, shaped his vision for Macedonia. Upon assuming the throne, Philip instituted sweeping reforms, overhauling the educational system and military tactics. He enlisted the renowned philosopher Aristotle to tutor his son Alexander, laying the groundwork for his future conquests. Philip's ambition knew no bounds as he involved himself in the affairs of southern Greece, forming alliances and conquering rival city-states. Despite warnings from Athenian orator Demosthenes, Philip emerged victorious at the Battle of Chaeronea in 338 BCE, effectively subjugating the Greek city-states under Macedonian control. Under Philip's reign, Macedonia flourished both militarily and economically. His assassination in 336 BCE left a void that would be filled by his son, Alexander III, who would go on to conquer vast territories and carve out an empire that stretched across continents. Thus, the legacy of Philip II, the visionary king who transformed Macedonia into a powerful empire, lived on through his son Alexander the Great. Continuing the saga of Alexander the Great and the legacy of Macedonia, after the death of Philip II, his son Alexander seized the opportunity to fulfill his father's ambitions of conquering Persia. With a formidable army at his back, Alexander crossed into Asia Minor in 334 BCE and swiftly captured the city of Baalbek. In a remarkable display of military prowess, he defeated the forces of Darius the Great at the Battle of Issos in 333 BCE. Alexander's conquests continued as he marched through Syria in 332 BCE and Egypt in 331 BCE. With a well-trained army and a full treasury inherited from his father, Alexander had the freedom to pursue his ambitions without the need for alliances. Beyond mere conquest, Alexander sought to unify cultures, spreading Hellenistic thought, language, and culture throughout the lands he conquered. In 331 BCE, Alexander decisively defeated Darius at the Battle of Gaugamela, solidifying his control over the Persian Empire. Yet, his ambitions knew no bounds, and he set his sights on India in 327 BCE. However, his campaign was cut short by threats of mutiny among his men, forcing him to abandon his plans. Tragically, Alexander's life was cut short by illness in 323 BCE, leaving behind a vast empire without a clear successor. His empire was divided among his generals, known as the Diadochi, who vied for control. These power struggles, known as the Wars of the Diadochi, consumed the region in conflict for decades. Amidst the chaos, Macedonia faced internal strife and external threats. Successive kings rose and fell, each vying for power and influence. Philip V, one of the most successful kings of Macedon, expanded the kingdom's borders and influence across the Mediterranean. However, Macedonia's ambitions clashed with Rome's growing power, leading to a series of conflicts known as the Macedonian Wars. Despite initial resistance, Macedonia eventually succumbed to Roman dominance, losing its independence and becoming a Roman province. Over the centuries, the region of Macedonia witnessed numerous invasions and upheavals. From Slavic invasions to the rise and fall of empires, its history was marked by constant change and conflict. In modern times, the legacy of Macedonia lives on in the diverse political and ethnic entities that emerged from its ancient lands. From Greece to Albania, Bulgaria to Kosovo, the impact of Macedonian culture and history reverberates through the ages. In 1991, the Republic of Macedonia was established, reclaiming a portion of the ancient Macedonian Empire's legacy. The enduring influence of Macedonia, epitomized by Alexander's conquests and the spread of Hellenistic culture, continues to shape the world to this day.